Hi Shane. Hi
So
Rick.
good to see you in person. First time, actually.
Yeah, first time, first time.
We live in a
Good to see
very
you as
virtual
well.
world. So where's everyone based? I'm in Japan.
I'm in Morecambe in the north of England.
Oh, lovely.
I'm in Spain, southern Spain, near Malaga. There's a small little town called Fuengirola.
How about you, Jillian?
Hi.
Hi.
Morning. It's BB, just so it's clear. I didn't.
So the question is, where are you
You
based?
guys were saying where you were?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in Germany. I'm in a city called Rottgau. It's a city that's just right next to Frankfurt.
Alrighty. It's really distributed. So I guess an opening question is, so we're part of the WNT Lampo group. Why is it called Lampo? No one ever told me.
Who knows?
No one knows. Someone would just randomly type.
Well, I think that one time Danjo made a remark that he would buy a nice collection of lamps, and there was a message attached right there, right below, that said "When Lambo," and I think one of us made a connection and just say "When Lampo." I mean, it was an obvious choice to mix up the words like that.
I mean, it's as logical as virtually everything else in the crypto space, so that's fine. If you haven't joined as well, welcome on board. So I guess we're talking for the first time. This might be the first time that a community group is recording something about WMT to share with the rest of the community in this manner. So maybe a starting thing here would be we can expect most of the audience to know what World Mobile is and what WMT is. But one thing that might be interesting is, why are people here? What are you planning to do? So just to get the ball rolling for context, I'm very interested in the mission of WMT. And that comes from kind of the personal passion project and also as an investor in spaces. So for example, I invest in Cardano because I think it's a sensible, efficient blockchain with potential. I like where WMT is going because I think it's a wonderful mission, but I also think it's a viable business and a viable economy. So that's sort of my perspective. And I'm interested in helping support the infrastructure through, perhaps running an Earth node which processes transactions and helping Mickey and the team where I can with communication and connections through the IT industry. Who's the next victim?
I can go.
You go.
I guess I can share how I got into World Mobile and what I liked about it and what made me look into it. Like a lot of people, my first exposure to it was Cardano. Special. To be honest, didn't think much of it at the time. I thought it was interesting, but I only finally dived in when a couple of crypto friends whose opinions I really trust and value told me this is gonna be great. And so that's when I really started reading into it. And in a cryptoverse of tens of thousands of cryptos, I really value cues like that from my friends. So I read up on it, watched maybe two or three videos, and I was sold. I knew exactly how much I was going to buy way before the TG. And what I thought was great at that time was the Cardano partnership. Um, and another thing that I remember was that line from RJ Katunda, where he said, "The business is not the connection. The business is not the access. It's what you're going to do once you have that access." And all of a sudden, the scale got so much bigger in my head. And the third thing I think that really um, piqued my interest is a relatable problem. You see often in the chat, even people who are in developed countries, they say, internet sucks. Everybody knows what it feels like when the internet sucks. Everybody knows what it feels like when there's no internet. And so when you pose that kind of problem, they know, okay, this is something that people really need. And these guys have a new solution. It's a brand new solution. No one's really done it before. And so I think that's really unique about World Mobile.
So how about you, Rick?
Yeah.
That was a really good answer. I thought it was riveting. You really,
Yeah.
really know what you're doing here. That's a good thing.
I tried.
Yeah, I agree. Really good answer. For me, I definitely came in after the Africa special as well, which was very important. A lot of us came in by the Africa special, and just the mission. To echo what both of you said, the mission is the main thing that that did it for me. Just what we can do for Africa, all the people that aren't connected at the moment. It's amazing what is going to happen. You look at the Smart Village pilot project, and seeing those fishermen be connected. But then when you've heard Mickey and Cedric and Andrew talk about that video, in some of their interviews where they say that the village size grew, like it doubled in size. Just people just came from other areas once they realised what the connection, and then the fishermen, they were previously drying their fish, and then when they had access to there's going to be solar panels and big batteries, and so electricity is going to be part of this this system as well as the connection. And so they were able to then have a little refrigerator and freezer and be able to store their fish and then sell, and then with the connection contact people in Europe and China and sell their produce further, and then their income increased drastically. So apart from just the simple things of connection, being able to talk to each other, and then education, online learning, but then just simple trading opportunities like that, and the electricity. That's the main reasons why the mission of the project is really exciting for me. Like you mentioned, it's built on Cardano, and I've learned about that over the last few months. I'm quite new to the crypto space. I've only been involved with this sort of stuff for about 6 months, so I've been learning. It's been a steep learning curve because there's just so much to get into. But I love the mission of Cardano and focusing on Africa, where there isn't currently any or a lot of infrastructure. We've got a lot of infrastructure in the West, and some of it is not working as good as it could. But because it's there, it's really hard to change it. Whereas I think Africa's going to have potential because it doesn't have that. So I'll stop talking now. I'll let someone else carry on.
Just three observations. First of all, Rick, you're kind of unique because you're both a musician and an IT manager, and of course our official Cardano ecosystem with WMT mascot song person. So you have a broad perspective from art to tech. A second thing I'd note is that when we talk about services exploding, and this came up on some of the other intros too, it's amazing what does happen when you connect people. Just last month, I bought honey from a two-person provider in rural China using TikTok to let people know what they were doing. And the $20 US I spent on their honey, which is roughly what I pay here in Japan if I bought it from the store, makes a tremendous difference to them. And of course, for me, it gives me access to something I would never have found before. Anyway, the final thing I just wanted to put in before we go to the next note, Rick, an interesting point that you brought up was the fact that once we get people connected, things will happen. And this, will happen to an extent that we can't even predict yet. I mean, who would have thought that a military network designed for nuclear war would become the internet? No one. And before, around 1994, who would have thought that it would become a fiscal powerhouse? No one. So, we've got one final intro to come. You have to talk to us, Andrea. Why are you here? What's your motive? What's your secret?
Okay, so basically, I'm in crypto from August last year. I found a space very interesting. My experience with blockchain was very remote. I'm a developer at core, and I have built some projects with Coinbase and Binance like in 2019. And so then I got a bit in contact with the blockchain. Other than that, only some friends of mine told me that, okay, just look at this coin, look at that coin. And this has started way back into 2010, 2011. And I never bothered to see what exactly meant like blockchain. What is that? I thought it was a child's play or something like that. Just moving around, some tokens and scamming people. And last year, I got into a bit of a rest from my work, and got into blockchain. So I've seen the potential, and I've seen what decentralization can do, and it basically empowers people to control their privacy. And through this immutability, you have a lot of transparency, and you got traceability. So it's very important that the foundation is correct. And I found a few cryptocurrencies, but mainly Cardano. Actually, Cardano was the one who brought me to this kind of mission, to connect Africa. And that was starting with Ethiopia. And from then, I realized that this movement is bigger than anything. I mean, connecting 5 million people, 5 million students in Ethiopia through a program like sponsored through the government. It's something really big. I mean, it's scaling up the whole potential of any blockchain so far. So I think that if this comes to fruition, which is bound to happen, I think this year or early next year, it would be one of the biggest implementation of blockchains, right? So many concurrent users. Yeah. So from a World Mobile perspective, because this is why we're here, I have also watched the Cardano Africa special, and I think from 29th, 30th of April, I've been in World Mobile, seeing their websites, white papers, and so on. So I've seen the potential, like Bibi and Rick mentioned, from the philanthropic aspect, but there's also a financial aspect that we have to take into consideration. And frankly, I mean, this business can be huge. And the thing that I liked mostly was that WMT can represent an economy in itself. So is exactly how we look at cryptocurrencies right now. People would think that they are tightly bound to the companies, but they are not. They are markets on their own. So they represent a circulation of money. So for WMT, since it's separated like that, it can represent a huge economy. And this, I think that the thing that impressed me the most financially was the digital identity that was built through Atala Prism. And this Atala Prism is also implemented in Ethiopia on Cardano. So I think that and what I also find interesting might be that it how is not Ethiopia on the list of countries for WMT? I mean, it's just an interesting thing to maybe find out in the future, because it seems like the potential is quite there.
Just a side note, I don't have insider knowledge on this. I think one of the main drivers and timescale, I suppose, setters is regulatory access to different markets. And of course, that's really different depending on where you are. So now this is interesting. I've been aware of and engaged with the crypto community and crypto people since the Bitcoin white paper came out. And for most of its life, I've regarded crypto as a tsunami of nonsense. And that has proven itself true. And of course, some people made a ton of money, but there was very little in the way of fundamentals. And I'm an extremely conservative investor who only invests in fundamentals. I have no interest in speculation. So it wasn't until Cardano that I actually thought, not only has blockchain matured to the point where we have relatively efficient blockchains that can address things like smart contracts and tokens and basically build economies. There's a solid foundation to this thing. It's been built on principles that make sense in terms of technology, and there's a clear mission concept of where it's going to unfold and how. So that's actually when I decided to start investing in crypto for the first time, March of this year. So I'm, 12 years after becoming aware of crypto. It took that long before I said, yeah, I'm comfortable with this space. And WMT for me is a very similar thing. I started with Cardano, and WMT for me is probably the first activity on Cardano that promises great growth potential as an ecosystem. And that goes both on a sense of helping people and also creating revenue, which is key. And one thing I like, quite frankly, and this is something you pointed out, Andrea, a cryptocurrency or token or a blockchain isn't really dependent on a company. And hypothetically, in the future, if a company is sold or moves on, people can assume the economic value and there's continuity. And that type of thing, as an investor, is really important to me. And I didn't see those problems being adequately solved until very recently. So I really like where that's going. One thing that does come up, though, is have you noticed how there's still rampant speculation everywhere? I mean, on the WMT official channel on Telegram, there must be 1,000 messages a day asking, when is this going to be listed on exchanges and what will the price be and where will it go? It's incredible how many people are still playing roulette in the space. And I can understand the appeal, but I can't understand the fiscal planning behind that. It seems like a suicide mission to me. You might hit gold, you might lose everything, but it's not investing. That's a harsh statement for me, and I'm pretty opinionated on that. I just wanted your take on, what's your feel about the crypto maturity? What's your feel about the maturity around WMT? And so on and so forth. And I'd just like to make a final note that I actually think WMT is pretty sensible. Most of the community are investors and people who are sticking around. There is noise, but that's a small percentage. And then when you look outside of this community, let's not even delve into AMC and all those things where the people are buying stocks, meme stocks, and then meme coins. And I don't know what they're doing. They're just being stupid. Anyway, your perspectives on our community and the more broad crypto community. Are we growing up? Do you have concerns?
I have maybe two general comments on that. First is that speculation is everywhere, regardless of how mature the market is. I used to be a trader, and whenever we have a morning meeting, there's always a special section about the retail market and how they behave. And they have a very, I would say, a more irrational way of behaving in general. Just because they have much less information, they have a much more varied, set of motivations in doing whatever it is that they do. And so that will always be present. Specific to crypto, though, and this is my second comment on it, crypto is definitely still in its infancy stage in terms of maturity and how it's traded. Regulation is not even there, which is a huge factor in making a market mature, because that will define how people move. That will define what's okay and not okay, even for people who can't really think for themselves, or you don't really have the time to think about how they invest. And so definitely still in its infancy stage. There will definitely still be maybe a few years ahead where people are in the process of defining what their comfort level is which products are okay for them and which are not. So I think that's the reason why you see a lot of when listing, when this, when that, because people are defining what their comfort level is in this new investment space.
That's a really good way to put it.
I would also add something towards the anxiety of people in crypto space specifically. I believe that with crypto, I mean, on these blockchains, the development can be very fast. I mean, the projects can get from infancy stage, like forking some piece of code, and just adding a few lines, few functionalities here and there, and just launching it, and having this ecosystem like a blockchain. It all functions, and it's easy to see something from zero to product. So the timeline can be very short. I mean, these products, especially the past 2 or 3 years, they've been up and running in months, and they've also succumbed in months. So the general timeline of projects is very short, and people, um, I think, in especially in crypto space, they are on to an extreme right now where they think that okay, you should make it, you should list this, why is it not tomorrow? You know, how could it not happen that tomorrow is the date to list on Binance or Coinbase or several platforms like that? But forget a bit that projects have um, like projects that not only move tokens around, they are they need to rely on different aspects. So here, this is one thing that WMT comes with. It's basically a telecom project. A telecom project doesn't move in months. It cannot.
Right.
So I think that some patience will be needed, uh, but it's a bit funny because it's telecom projects usually move slow, and crypto projects usually move fast. So you see this discrepancy here is quite big, and it will be interesting to see what happens next.
I think there were two great points raised a second ago about, first of all, information gap, right? So there's an enormous information gap between, let's say, a retail investor or someone who's got a pro broker account and can look at things. And that's a very different type of, let's say, gambling. If you're going into futures and you're making a big bet, not if you shorted AMC earlier this year, but generally you've done a lot of research and you're fairly confident of what will happen. Where retail investors often have limited market data and make decisions on a smaller data set, which can lead to fascinating herd mentality. You know, things start to happen and it's so far removed from fundamentals. But I mean, that said, you know, even if you have solid fundamentals, things can go pear-shaped. They just do. So I mean, there's no such thing as a certain investment. But apart from that information gap, which is something that I think in crypto is massive. A lot of people in crypto have very little information about fundamentals or little experience in analysis. So it's interesting. Second thing would be regulation, which I concur is probably the most important thing to signify that a space is ready. And indeed, the oncoming regulations that we see, the existing regulation in Japan, is one reason I felt things are growing up. It's, you know, we're at the cusp of early maturity. Yeah. Anyway, Rick.
Yeah. I was going to just carry on from both those thoughts, and yeah, that's like you said, newer retail investors, particularly, you know, ones that haven't even looked at the stock market at all and just gone straight into crypto. You know, crypto just moves so fast. You know, the exchanges never sleep. The prices go up and down continually. At least, you know, if you're looking at the New York Stock Exchange or something, it starts one day and it finishes at a certain time of the day, and at least you can kind of go to bed when it goes to bed and not look at it for a little bit. Okay, there's outside hours trading, but do you know what I mean? But yeah, the crypto just moves so fast, and you know, so newer investors, a lot of people are just joining in. You know, they hear about it via Twitter or something, and they just after just a quick bit of profit. They haven't done any due diligence whatsoever. So that's one interesting factor. Some of the people, and you can see them in the community, they are, especially you see them in the price talk group, because we try to direct them away from the official channels. Those are the kind of people you see in there. But also on the other hand, I know I've only been in crypto recently, but I've been reading history as you do. And, the 2017 there was that big spike that happened there. And a lot of that was a promise of sort of real world solutions to problems. And mostly that didn't happen. Mostly all those things were just kind of pipe dreams, and I think a lot of people that were in the space at that point got burned by a lot of great ideas that never came to fruition. So, a lot of Cardano, we've obviously all came in from watching the Cardano 360. Cardano has got a lot of haters out there in the crypto sphere, and partly that is to do with the fact that it's the slow and steady approach that Cardano has taken is kind of at odds with a lot of the very quick action in a lot of the the crypto space. So that length of time, as you say, telecoms takes a long time. Cardano's taken a long time, and most of the crypto projects have just very quick action. And that discrepancy, is something that needs managing.
This is a side observation, but one thing I like about Cardano, and especially about projects like WMT, where you've got something happening in the real world, solid revenue potential and growth, is that it provides a relatively safe space for people to wet their feet in crypto, get used to it, understand the fluctuations without the floor falling out of them every other day. And everyone starts somewhere. I mean, it's fine to be brand new to crypto, to be very hopeful, but have no idea how to do an analysis around this. I mean, that's how everyone starts. And Cardano does seem like a pretty good place to do that. And the community, I think, is pretty, how to put it, generous in often providing insight, which is not simply yelling yay or nay, but talking about why they think there's stuff happening. I was really in the middle of 2015 to 2017. I was working with a lot of lawyers who were working with a lot of crypto companies. And quite frankly, at that time, it was like snake oil salespeople. It was so full of people making promises that were impossible, having ideas that might be valid, but no execution. And I feel so sorry for all the people who went into that as their first experience of investing. What a horrible experience. But it even happens today. I don't know if you're on cryptocurrency on Reddit. I mean, I know Reddit is like the cesspool of the internet, but there's a lot of people there. And cryptocurrency is interesting because every time Bitcoin goes down 20%, which is just like, you don't care. That's what Bitcoin does. There's all these people kind of saying, oh, I'm losing all my money, I'm selling. And you're like, oh, God.
It's just a regular day at the office.
So, I mean, do you have any kind of investment tips that you'd share to someone who's new? I mean, my tip would be do a lot of analysis, buy your stuff, and have a sales schedule based not on emotions, but on the analysis, right? I mean, even if the market drops out tomorrow, but your plan is to hold for 5 years, hold. Don't sell at a loss. That's what I'd say to people. What would you say?
I'm not an investor, Shane, but I'm not a trader. I'm not you're an experienced man in the market, so I would kind of tend to echo what you said. Do your research. Don't just jump in on something straight away. Do a bit of research. Read the white paper. Read all the documentation. It's amazed me looking at people talking in the chat of World Mobile. Just how many people have just jumped in without even reading the documentation. It boggles my brain. So yeah, read everything, learn about the projects. There's a lot of projects out there, so this could take a long time. And yeah, once you've made a decision, don't be put off if you've got confidence in, like you say, the fundamentals of a project. And this is where crypto is different to the traditional stock market, because in a sense, are there any fundamentals in some of the crypto projects?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, this is the problem. You've got the basic tokenomics, some of which, whether they're inflationary or not, But yeah, that's my advice. So I would say, do your research, and if you're going to make a firm decision, try and stick to it for a long term, or just be a swing trader. That's and just get in, see a profit, get out. Don't hang around. But that is not for me. I haven't got time to do that. So World Mobile, it seems like the business. I can see a clear path. It's late. If you look at the deck document, you can see there's a plan laid out for the growth of the network over 5 years. That gives me confidence, and all the fundamentals of the way the business will be developed. So that would be my advice.
My advice.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. My advice for next plan. I think that one side is correct what you've mentioned, Shane, about exiting in 5 years or so. Maybe that in crypto, the volatility is very high, and it's easy to get emotional on rise and falls. But I think that also a financial objective would be achievable for sure. First look at the project and look if it can go to 10x, as you say, it would. Uh, but also exit at that level you chose to,
Right.
or try to see some basic like DCA, dollar cost average. You could exit a bit, so you just average up and down your portfolio, and wisely choose your portfolio, because in crypto is quite it's so interesting that you could basically lose all your money in there. Just set your target to, let's say, 5%,
And many
3%.
people have lost all their money. It's not.
Exactly.
We're hearing about the success stories, but there's a lot more flameouts.
Yeah, and just choose a percentage and don't go over it.
Yeah.
If you make out of that 5%, if you make out in 50%, let's say you got 10x, you're happy, right? Just exit and move the money somewhere where is more reliable, more stable. I mean, this is the way for people not to get. You cannot get rich fast. So few people get rich fast from investing. It's like a roulette there. So I think that one good thing people should know is that if you want to go safe, just play with smaller margins into high risk, high reward scenarios like crypto is right now. Well, hopefully until WMT comes, because this is a ground project. This is a real world application, of it's a real project, and the blockchain is actually what it's just a utility token. And I think that this would be this can be a good mark of incoming real projects on crypto as a whole.
Cool. Well, for me, what I find myself saying often to people ask for advice is um, try to create scenarios for yourself. Of course, do your own research. You have to do that. But I think what's particularly difficult for a lot of people is finding the time to really do it consistently and updating themselves in what's happening. And that's just not um, very convenient for a lot of people. A lot of people who are into crypto get money from working a full-time job, and that doesn't give you a lot of time to do all that research required to manage your investment. So what I would usually say is try to create scenarios for yourself. Even though you're very confident about a project, or you're looking at a project that you think might work but might also fail, kind of 50-50, try to create scenarios for yourself so that when that scenario comes to fruition, you know what to do. There's not a lot of thinking involved instead of you thinking on the spot. For example, for World Mobile, you might be extremely confident, but if it really goes 500x in one day, like one prediction says, what are you gonna do? Is it still too good to be sold? Or are you gonna sell there and pick up later? Or are you gonna sell there and move on to another asset? You have to create those scenarios for yourself. And like I said earlier, I guess it's part of defining what you're really comfortable with and what you really want in your investment portfolio. So yeah, that's what I find myself saying quite often recently.
That's a really good point. I mean, if $1,000 turns into $1 million, that's probably, the golden goose laid an egg. It's time to have that scenario as I'll exit, pay the tax, and live in the Bahamas. These are scenarios. One thing related to this, I mean, the research time gap is real. For example, I work in the middle of tech industry, but I'm also working with various industrials and so on. I'm reading hours a day, and that's also my day job. So I get a lot of information about markets because of what I do. And at the same time, I use Interactive Brokers Trader Workstation, which allows very quick access to information about companies and stuff like that. So I'm very fortunate in that. And as you say, most people don't have the data access, so they can't make a judgment whether it's very conservative like me or looking for a cash out. In crypto, though, we still lack really good analysis. The emerging analysis I see on Bloomberg is pretty good on crypto. So I'd say to anyone, go get a Bloomberg subscription. I don't mean the trader subscription at $20,000, just the media subscription. And you can see what the markets are thinking about crypto as opposed to Reddit. But we lack comprehensive analysis tools, as far as I can see, that match in any way what we have across stocks, bonds, and so on. I don't know if I'm simply missing them, but that would be my take so far in the market. We need to have information maturity, and we are lacking that.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
You go, BB. You go.
Okay. What would you define as comprehensive analysis as compared to what we see in crypto?
Right. So I'll go with the three things that I really want. So when I'm looking at something, I immediately want to see the volatility over a long period. So like 5 years volatility, the average returns with respect to the rest of the market for similar profiled assets. And then I also want to be able to deep dive into the fundamentals of the asset. So let's say, for people who aren't familiar with it, AltaVista is not just a search engine. AltaVista is another company which does stock analysis. You can get that. You can have stuff like Stock Report Plus from Routers, and to be able to look at where the company's fundamentals are, sales, executives, insider trading, and so on. So going through that, the pricing history, the relative market positioning, and then being able to dig in, I don't see that being provided in a simple way in crypto yet. I mean, white papers, yes, but that's a static document.
Yeah,
the reason I ask this, I wonder how much, sorry, Andre, I wonder how much of what's being done currently in more traditional markets can really be translated into the cryptocurrency space. For example, the ability to, for example, teams. A lot of teams are anonymous. So yeah. What information can you really give? Also, I guess blockchain analysis, there's nothing like, for example, CAPM for stocks, which is old and outdated, but it's such a standard way of looking at market value and beta and volatility and stuff like that. Those things haven't established yet. So I think that's the reason why you don't see it, because there's no way to synthesize that information in the same way as we do now for traditional markets. Having said that, what I do like about the crypto space is that there is a ton of independent analysis. The challenge is, which one are you gonna follow? And this is why you see a lot of influencers. I know a lot of us feel like the wrong influencers are doing a lot of the influencing. But yeah, that's the challenge. You have to pick the right person who's giving the useful analysis. But there's actually a lot out there. It's just that they're independent. They're not audited. You don't know if there's no filter. You don't know how much of it is coming from their own personal motivation versus actual useful data to you.
Now, Andrea, you touched on something as well, which is very much related to this, I think, with regards WMT being based in the real world. One thing that excites me about WMT is that when we're looking at the token in the market space, we can analyze all the way down to revenue in Zanzibar and say to ourselves, do we think the fundamentals are still associated with the market pricing of the token? Will there be a correction? That's one thing that attracts me to it. Though, I mean, that is a very specific use case. I mean, we're all here because we like it from the physical infrastructure to the token. And not all of crypto will or should be like that, like pure digital finance, smart contracts. Yeah.
I think that it's very hard to make analysis on and projections on different tokens because they don't represent actual companies. I mean, this would be a first. It's very detached from a company, from projection. I mean, from perspectives of that company, what will become, as well as it mostly stays abstract, like it mostly stays virtual. So it's very hard to grasp how virtual will affect people. Yeah. So comparing to, let's have a company of shipping products. I mean, it's very easy. It's very easy to have it closer to you. So the virtual world poses a very big question mark here. How and we are new into this space, and I think that we will have the chance to learn and bring it more closer to some fundamentals, but still the crypto space has to mature in order to have a solid ground and not some moving land right below you, just that you cannot know where to go.
Yeah. It seems an immediate outcome of this call is that we should set up the first comprehensive crypto business analysis firm and then sell it to Bloomberg for $5 billion.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah, just carrying on from what you were saying about the real world usage, one thing that's been going through my mind and just trying to just jiggle it about is that we know that WMT is a utility token. We know that. One of the ways that it will work is that people will be able to go and buy a top-up card for their local currency. And at some point, we're not entirely sure of the mechanism. It's been explained a little bit in the Telegram groups, but it's not actually detailed in the white paper, the exact details. But at some point, the local currency will get changed for WMT, and it's sort of like just immediately, in the background, you won't, or in some places you will be able to pay for your service with WMT if that's possible in your country by the regulations. So that means WMT is completely different to any other cryptocurrency, because all the rest of them, like you say, have got no real world usage whatsoever. They're just purely speculative things. Whereas if there's, when there is a real world use, like WMT is equivalent to a certain number of data minutes. And I'm not, what I've been trying to figure out is how that could work in terms of, in one country. So you've got, Tanzanian, is it shillings? Is that what they're called? How much gigabytes does so many Tanzanian shillings equal? And then how many world mobile tokens does that equal? And then if you've got dollars or pounds, just, the conversion rate between gigabytes and WMT, and how will that be affected by the market pricings? All those moving pieces, I'm finding a bit yeah, I'm trying to get my head around how that will work, but that is something that is going to be just unique from WMT compared to any other of the crypto tokens.
I must say that specific point, I'm actually quite comfortable with it, because differential pricing in different market spaces is pretty common with companies. The most obvious brutal example being that if you buy an Apple iPhone in the United States, it's cheaper than the UK, which is a lot cheaper than Australia. So the differential pricing, I think, will work fine. And if people are buying WMT tokens in, let's say, one country beside another country, but the pricing is differential, at the borders, they're going to swap the tokens. But that's exactly the same as App Store tokens or Amazon tokens and so on with the physical cards where you buy $100 of Amazon token. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about that. That market differential pricing, I think, has been in telcos for a long time. And I think following their blueprint should work fine. I mean, one thing we can't say is that every market will have the same price for the same good, not when we have market dynamics at play. So it's okay.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just, like you're saying, at the borders, you could exchange, like if you're talking an actual iPad, it's like, it's not so easy to ship an actual iPad from like UK to Australia as it is to ship a Bitcoin or a WMT. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that sort of arbitrage of just buying an iPad in one place and then shipping it to the other place and then doing it again and again. That's where the speed of the crypto and the ease of transferring things, that's one of those pieces which is slightly, making my brain spin out sort of how it's going to work exactly.
Maybe it's a little bit unique to a few economies, but by way of example, in Japan and Hong Kong, there's a lot of trading of the pop-up cards and things like that, and it goes cross-border. So you can often get the equivalent amount of value for less money in Hong Kong markets for, let's say, a gift card.
Right.
And people will buy it remotely in Japan. So, I think that trading happens without causing a serious market disruption. In PlayStation or, Amazon are still doing okay out of their digital economy. But it will be an edge, an edge fluctuation that needs to.
Maybe let's look at how you buy a game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think it's a bit closer because whether you buy it in Japan or you buy it from, or you buy it with euro or you buy it with dollars. I mean, the price differs as well, but the actual difference is insignificant, right? Actually, I don't know when I have bought a game last time.
Well, there's a great example of that where even a brand new game, let's say when Cyberpunk 2077 came out, if you went to cdkeys.com, you could immediately get a discount of around 15% on the price that you pay on Steam for the same Steam key.
Crazy.
Market dynamics. Actually, this touches on one, I think maybe one last point that might be the big one. When WMT's ecosystem grows and grows, more people will have digital identity. So we can trade across distances in a way we couldn't before. And that touches on all kinds of things. I'm particularly interested in banking and lending, right? So people have access to a certain pool for borrowing money. And if you're a farmer in a village 40 kilometers from a town, your pool is the village, or maybe the next village. And that means you won't get preferential rates. But with a digital identity, you can potentially get access to finances or other services at much better, more competitive rates, which will disrupt traditional flows, but it will introduce whole new ways for people to do things with better pricing. I'm kind of excited about the digital identity and where this will go. So I guess the big question I have is, what excites you most about the digital identity? Because everyone referenced it a little bit today. For me, it's probably lending markets first.
Yeah, I think for me as well. I think lending markets will I mean, it touches a like on Maslow, it touches a very base layer there, since it's about people needing money and having yield rates at 80% in Africa and a lot of countries, 80% per year. when trying to lend $300. So this needs to be solved. Once this is solved, I think that it will open a new world of possibilities for people to actually have the trust first that they can do stuff.
Yeah, I am most excited about the micro lending really as well. Just it will give so many opportunities to so many people in wherever mobile begins working. It's obviously going to be Tanzania and Zanzibar first, but yeah, those farmers that just need a sack of seeds, and they need a couple of $100 for a sack of seeds, and then they can feed the family, feed the community. That is just going to make such a massive difference to their lives. It's going to be brilliant. And obviously, and it's an opportunity, it's a new market for other people to get involved in as investors, to provide liquidity to those markets and get some return on that as well. So it's a kind of a win-win scenario.
Yeah, and to add a bit to that, what you said, Rick, it transforms people, because when people cover their needs, then they can look further, and they can look towards opportunities, towards they can start being creative. And I think this is where it can go.
I've been doing micro lending for years, and one of the big problems is that there's a lot of arbitrage involved, and the local endpoints often cost a lot. So the amount of money that gets into the hands of people lending can be disrupted, or the amount of relative interest they pay. Now, this isn't the same kind of horrific numbers like 80% direct local, but we're talking that the percentage loss is too high, where with a digital ID, particularly running on, let's say, tokens on a blockchain, you have the potential to dramatically reduce the amount of arbitrage, perhaps only one entity to collect the money and to distribute it. And that will collapse costs. And I do hope it works, because we've got huge amounts of information about microlending. Places like Indonesia have had massive markets for many years. But a lot of the global microlenders are kind of going down a path that I don't think is healthy. Like one I used for years just took in VC capital and changed their structure. It's like, I don't like where that's going. I know VCs, they want the 100x. So I'm out. That's just a small observation that I think that could be pretty transformative. Oh, interestingly, you should go and Google the stats on this. One of the safest returns on microlending is a very curious thing. Small communities with limited production ability, for instance, on seeds or cloth, and particularly when the lending group is a female collective, the default rate is astonishingly low, which indicates that if you can invest your capital over there, you're actually looking at a pretty good way to get a pretty good return with pretty low risk. It's just we can't do it today. I just think that's cool. It's a really interesting statistic.
I did not know that. Is that a formalized segment, or
a formalized segment? No. But most micro lenders allow you to choose who you're lending to. So you wander through the portfolios and you find people. Let's see, where did I find particularly easy access to female collectives? Usually on cloth production. Uganda was one, and I think it was Kenya was another, where there was a particular kind of cluster of such initiatives. And you can see the default rates there, but more importantly, there's analysis on default rates. And it's very promising on micro lending. I think it's probably because people who are borrowing in an environment where they're clearly exposing who they are and what they're doing, they tend to have a business plan. And there tends to be market demand, but lack of capital for bootstrapping. So it's a good situation.
okay?
It's very good, because it helps the people who need the money to actually do stuff, and also the businesses to prosper as well, so they can scale. It's definitely a win-win situation here. And it's interesting that you mentioned Kenya, because Kenya is one of the countries that's on the WMT map, right?
Yep. Just conversely, if you're looking at microlending, the worst default profile I've found is male motorbike taxi drivers. That's the other side of the picture. That's particularly prevalent in Indonesia. So let's wrap it up there. Final notes. Anything you'd like to say to the WMT world as we segue out of our first Lampo call?
It has to be stay tuned, of course. How could it be anything else? Stay tuned is my favorite little phrase. Stay tuned, everybody. Yeah, stay tuned. I love stay tuned. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I would say have a bit of patience. This kind of project takes time, and returns will be there.
Yeah, same here. Stay tuned. We're all in this together. You're not waiting alone. The team is very transparent. You can talk to them every day. And I am personally very excited, just as excited as all of you are.
And I just echo all of that. And I think one last thing I'd say is this community is amazing. Go find people on the chats and talk with them. Ignore the noise and go find the people who are here and saying, I'm here for the long term, and find out, why. They can help you cut through a lot of the, the heavy lifting. They've already done it, and they can provide you quick shortcuts and help your understanding. So even if you're brand new, you can become pretty sophisticated in WMT and perhaps Cardano pretty quickly, because your peers are here and our community is just awesome at talking and giving time.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, thank you for your time today. Our first recording is about an hour. Let's see what people do. I'll leave the comments on YouTube so we can get the maximum amount of hate in the minimum amount of time.
Awesome.
Take care all. Be well.
Take
Nice to
care.
speak to you all.